Hey, Allie, do you have any aches and pains today?
Oh, just about three or four.
Like,
Sometimes it's hard to know what to do when and sometimes we've tried all the things, but sometimes there are some alternative therapies maybe we should give a try. And today we have who is a muscle activation technique specialist, and Miss Amber Barron, and she's going to tell us all about muscle activation technique and how that might be just the thing we need to get some of the kinks out.
and before we get to Amber, let's give a shout out to Megan Tremblone. Thanks for listening. Now let's dive in.
Welcome to the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, where we dive deep into pressing health and fitness issues facing aging women. I'm Allie Kerr.
And I'm Shauna Kaminsky. And together we'll bring candid conversations, expert advice, and personal stories that will inspire and empower you on your own wellness journey.
Welcome to the show, Amber. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So,
Looking forward to it.
well, the first question, of course, is as a muscle activation specialist, we're all wondering, what is that? And how can our listeners benefit from what you have to share?
Sure. So muscle activation, a lot of people, we kind of tell people it's what a chiropractor does for your bones, I do for your muscles. So what I'm looking for is I'm looking at muscle dysfunction, and we find what muscles aren't working, and then we activate them with a palpation method, and then we have the ability to do a checks and balance. So we can check if it's working. If it's not, we treat it, and then we can come back and check to make sure that it is working. So oftentimes I tell people we have two different kinds of strength. You have your gym strength, or, carrying the groceries around, walking up the stairs. That's your gym type of strength. But then you also have the neuro side, and that is how well your muscles can work. So you can do the other things, but are they working correctly? Are you compensating? Are you in pain? Do you have imbalances in that way? And my job is to find those imbalances and correct them.
Now, is this any way similar to neurokinetic therapy, NKT? Are you familiar with that?
A little bit. It's its own technique. Yeah. I mean,
Gotcha.
there's a lot of things along those lines that have similarities, but it is its own technique.
And how in the world did you get into muscle activation technique?
Well, my background has always been in the fitness, health field, and nutrition. And I was actually at a fitness conference, and I happened to go to this class as a side class. And 5 minutes in, I saw the demonstration, and I needed to know how to do that. And so I went home, called a few people around the country it was very new at that time. And the people that were doing it had nothing but amazing things to say about it. And I thought, that's it, I'm in. And it's been 18 years, and it's been one of the best things I've ever done.
And so tell us a little bit about the training and where you went for it, and how does that work?
Yeah, sure. So back when I started it, that was, like I said, that was 18 years ago. And I lived in Denver at the time, and that's where headquarters is. So lucky for me, I was able to just go through the schooling there. And it was, at the time, we used to do 1 weekend a month. It was a long weekend each month, and we'd go in and train that way. But now, because of 2020, it kind of threw everybody for a loop, and a lot of things came online. And so now they do a lot of their courses. You do a majority of it online, watching videos and studying on your own. But then you do have to go in and do in-person courses too, to make sure that, because it is a technique, to make sure you know what you're doing. And you have to test out things like that.
And I know some of our listeners are in the fitness industry. So is this a lot of people that do this? Are they in the fitness industry, or what kind of backgrounds, and what would be a good reason for someone to maybe get involved in this? What kind of interest or client or work do they need to be doing?
Yeah. Well, I would say the majority of people that enter this field they do have some type of background in the health field, whether it be a chiro, a PT, a personal trainer. But, there's a handful of people, if not a few more, that come in because they want a job change. And this world of the body, it's really fascinating. And there are a lot of people that have gone in. I actually have a couple that I treated them, and they were so fascinated, and they loved how that it helped them so much that's what carried them. They want to go help people, and they found this to be a way to do that. So
if I had muscle ache or pain, could you tell me the process of, how would you go about treating me, for example? Like, do I come in? Is it kind of like a physio appointment? Excuse our ignorance over the process, but I think this is, since it's new to us, I know that it would probably be new to our listeners as well. So
Yeah.
it would be great to create some kind of awareness about this.
Yeah.
So first that, and then secondly, how would someone, if they're not in the Denver area, that they could work with you, how does someone go about finding this sort of technique for themselves?
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's one of the things, because it is newer, it isn't very well known, but the people that know, they tell, they spread the word. Okay. So when somebody wants to come see me, what they'll do, we'll do a full health history, and we'll get a scan of everything that's going on with you, what you're feeling currently, any injuries or past surgeries, that kind of stuff that you've had before. And the more info I can get, the more I can see the big picture. So then once we do that, then I have a massage table that people hop on. You're fully clothed, you hop on the table, and then I put you through range of motion testing. So I'm just trying to figure out where you're actually moving, where you're stuck. And we look for that elephant in the room, so to speak, to start. Your body will tell me where I need to go. And so once we find that elephant, I have tests for each muscle. So let's just say, for sake of conversation, you're kind of stuck rotating to the left. Any muscle that can help you into that motion, we individually test it, and then we'll retest it. So it's a checks and balance system. So we know when our work it's working. Once the brain recognizes that all those muscles are firing, the tight ones will let go, and your range of motion will open up. Your joints line up, and you just kind of have that lighter, easier moving feeling. And so when people, in order to find a muscle activation specialist, you can just go right onto the Muscle Activation Techniques website, and it says find a practitioner. And then you just type in your zip code, and it'll tell whoever's closest to you, and that way. And there's different levels of us. So if you're looking for something specific, you can actually find that too.
Awesome. And so we'll make sure that we have that link in the show notes. So
yeah, perfect.
Now, if you could talk a little bit more about how the brain and the body work. So how does Matt help people reconnect their muscle when their brain has kind of turned it off? Because oftentimes your brain will turn off that signal due to injury of some sort. So what do you do to get that signal going again?
Yeah, so that's what we're doing with the testing. We're getting you in positions to test a specific one muscle. And so what we're checking, is that neural connection going? Is it reaching it? And then if it's not, the palpation actually brings it back with some reactions that are happening within the body when we do the palpation. And when we recheck it, that's what tells us if it's coming back or not. And so any kind of stress can shut a muscle down. It can be chemical, physical, emotional. And my job is to find out which ones are shut down and then bring those back and restore it.
Can you talk to us about a client maybe that you've worked with, and what's some interesting challenges that they came in with, and how MAT was able to address those?
Oh boy, those are like a daily thing. Sure. I'm just trying to think of some specifics. Yesterday, I was actually working on a woman. She's been having a lot of shoulder pain, and she's never had any shoulder injuries, never had any problems. But she kind of had a flare up when she came in yesterday, and she was having a really hard time moving both of her arms in certain ways. So we started kind of working on her. There's a lot of connection between her hips and her shoulders. So as we find imbalances in her hips, her arms started to get more range of motion. And then when we got into her feet, even more, they would just naturally loosen up. Your body, when you start these compensation patterns, oftentimes it starts small, and not everybody recognizes that you're in one. And it starts out as whispers. So it's really about connecting with your body, listening to see just what's happening. And it doesn't have to be kind of a judgment to your body. It's talking to you all the time.
Sometimes you have a limited range of motion, or the brain turns off that neurological firing because there's injury. So what's the balance between regaining that range of motion and recovery from injury? Like how do that would be a dance. How do you do that?
Okay, so I had a high school kid that actually came in, and he had a very bad sprain, had torn a major ligament. And with that, they were looking at surgery, but he had seen me before, so wanted to see how this could help him. And it was amazing. His swelling went down within the hour. Now, granted, it's still a sprain, so he still has an injury. But when you provide everything to be working from a muscular standpoint, it provides a healing environment. And so he could stand. He walked out. I've had many people, they come in on crutches and they walk out without. It's just one of those where when you provide the correct environment, your healing process is going to be better. You're going to move better. You feel better, and you're in a safer zone within your body.
So what did you discover with the ankle that caused him to be able to walk without the crutches or walk better out of there?
So any kind of trauma can shut muscles down. Like I had mentioned before, it can be stress, it can be chemical, physical, emotional. So he was actually playing a sport and he severely rolled his ankle. Somebody fell on him. And so it shut a lot of those muscles down, which creates swelling. Swelling is oftentimes people want to get rid of it, maybe to an extent, but swelling acts like a cast. Your body is crazy smart. And so it provides that swelling so that you don't move because you're not stable. And so once we provide a better environment, a healing environment, and making sure that everything is turned back on neurologically, the swelling reduces and he is able to use those joints in a better way. And now, is he going to go run right away? No, we don't want him to. But the fact that he can walk and stand on it and feel stable and not in pain, that's a good place to be.
We're going to interrupt this interview for just a second because we've got something we want to make sure that you know. If you're struggling with your health, with your fitness, if you don't know where to start or you know what to do and you're not doing it, we're here for you. And all you need to do to get our help is to reach out to Shauna and I at our email, sapodcast23@gmail.com. And we're happy to help and we will be in touch. Now back to the show.
Could you explain why the feet, since we're talking about the ankle, and say able-bodied people without injury, still the feet are probably a great place to start to create balance and mobility. But why is that the case?
Well, when you think about it, your feet are the first thing that touch the ground. And so there are thousands of nerves in your feet. They provide all the information about what's needing to happen up above the feet. And so one of the things that we're kind of taught in our culture right now that between fashion and comfort and stability, and everybody needs these highly cushioned shoes because your feet might hurt, or you need a stability shoe when you run, or whatever that may be. But the thing that we're lacking is the information about your feet. The second you start putting things under your feet, you're limiting their interaction with the ground. So they're lacking the feedback. So now the more cushion you put under there, the less impact they have, or the less information has up above. So it becomes a guessing game. Your feet are very much tied all the way up. I've worked on people's big toes before, and they can all of a sudden turn their necks better. I mean, it's one system. They all have their parts, but each part plays a role. And your feet are so very, very important. They impact everything in the whole body.
We had Dr. Emily Splickle on, and she will be coming out shortly. And it is so fascinating how all the fascia, converge at the feet. And I can see how the big toe is connected to the shoulder, to the neck, to everything. And
absolutely.
It's so interesting that you are able to use muscle activation techniques to reduce pain, increase mobility. Could you talk a little bit about, we talk about compensations, and most people don't even know that, hey, I'm limping or I'm compensating in some way. What are the early signs of, first of all, maybe you could explain what compensation is, because I just made an assumption there. And then why it's terrible, and how can we recognize when our body is compensating for some sort of muscle imbalance?
Sure. So compensation just means that you are using something else to help out. So for instance, if my deltoid isn't working, which is a shoulder muscle over here to lift the arm out, if that's not quite working, you do have plenty of other muscles around here that can lift your arm out. But if let's just say I'm in the gym and I'm lifting and my shoulder keeps hiking up towards on one side towards my ear, that is clearly a compensation. So when you are moving in a way that doesn't feel natural, you're in a compensation. If you have pain, most likely you have a compensation. And compensation isn't always bad. It's your body's way to protect you. The problem is when we stay in it too long, it now becomes your new pattern of movement. And that's where arthritis comes in, pain comes in, breakdown of joints come in, torn muscles, torn ligaments. It's when you've been there for too long.
I was going to say, talk to us about our audience is women. And women, we tend to ignore things. I'm sure a lot of us are out competing right now. What do you see a lot of female clients? And if so, what kind of issues do you tend to see a lot of, especially in females 40 and older?
I see a pretty big range of most people, anywhere from young kids to the elderly. I see high-end athletes to somebody that's having trouble getting up and down the stairs. I do see a lot of women, and I wouldn't say that there's anything in particular that women over 40 necessarily struggle with. People in general over 40, a lot of times that's when old injuries start to kind of surface because you've been in that compensation for so long, and it's finally trying to tell you, you know what, you got to fix this. So there's a lot of people in their 40s and 50s. Oh, my knee's really been bothering. They're telling me I need a knee replacement. They're telling me I need to do whatever it might be to fix it. And so it's not necessarily like there's particulars for that age group, but it's when we really need to start listening. And my little hope in there is that when your listeners are hearing this, if you do have those small things, I know that sometimes it's hard to take that moment, but take care of it now, because you don't have to live like that. You don't have to be in pain. You don't have to have that surgery. There's ways to take care of it, and it doesn't take much, and it's completely worth it.
I think that is the problem, like Ali mentioned, is women particularly are busy taking care of others, and so they don't take that time.
Yeah.
And I do agree with you that it takes less time than one would think if you kind of get on top of it.
Yeah.
Or it gets to, because if you deal with it when it's a whisper, it's I don't want to say an easy fix, but much better or faster fix than when it's yelling.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Well, and if you think about the idea of, if you just take a moment and just kind of think about this in the general picture, if I take an hour out of my week, I know I have 3 kids and I run a business. I get it. It's a busy life, right? But if you take an hour once a week for, say, 10 weeks, and you take care of something that's really bothering you, if you were to have a surgery 10 years down the road and now you're out for 6 weeks, 6 weeks is a lot longer than 1 hour a week for 10 weeks. If you just kind of take that picture, and not to mention, I have a lot of clients, I would say the clients that are on the older end, 60 and above, I have one in particular, she said, I feel 10 years younger than when I started with you 10 years ago. It's like you get this kind of life back. You get movement. You get to age gracefully, because a lot of people end up at me too. They don't know what's wrong. I've seen this person, I've tried this, I've done this, and it's still there. And it gets thrown into the category of, oh, it's just you're getting older. It doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to just get older. You don't have to throw that into that category. We can just take care of it and
a
help
lot of times people just think, well, I guess I'm just not going to do that anymore. I really don't need my coffee cup in the top shelf. I'm just going to keep it on the counter. And so then the less you say use this range of motion of overhead reaching, then
Right.
you're going to be able to. So either thinking it'll go away on its own, it'll fix itself, or I'm just not going to do that anymore, are probably not doable solutions for healthy aging.
Right. There's a great saying. It says, you don't you don't stop moving because you get old. You get old because you stop moving.
Absolutely.
And so that's one thing I love. And I wish everybody knew about MAT. They don't have to come to me, but just go find somebody, because it's a game changer. You feel lighter, you feel better, and you can keep going and doing all the things that you want to do.
Yeah. So because you work with a gamut of clients, children to Olympic athletes, what is the high performer doing differently than Mrs. Jones, who might not be able to get her coffee cup out of the upper cupboard, or is, put things off? What can we learn from those high performers?
I would just say keep moving. Keep at it and taking care of yourself. And I mean that you guys, like you do that podcast about all different aspects of life. It's the stress, it's the finances, it's the health and the fitness and the eating, diet. It's work. But you know what? That's what life is. It's all work. You just have to choose your hard, So I think for those people, a lot of them, when you do take care of yourself, one of the things about MAT is that every time somebody comes in to see me, essentially what we're looking at is force tolerance. And so that's how much you can take on, right? How much the muscle can take on. But everything is a force. When you eat certain foods, if it's a high fatty food, that's a force on your body that takes a toll. If you eat something light and easy, that's not so much of a force. But it's what we're doing here when you're on the table, we're increasing that force tolerance every time you come in. And so over time, even when we get you moving and better, you're actually getting stronger too, and you're able to take on more, any kind of stress. And so I think a higher level individual, they are pushing those forces, and then they heal, and then they keep pushing so they can stay at that higher level. And not everybody needs to be at the high level, but if we look at it from a sense of upping your game a little bit so that you can tolerate more, things just feel a little easier in general.
And can you tell us how MAT started or when it started? Just maybe a little more background information on this technique.
Okay, the guy that developed this, his name is Greg Roskopf, and he's out of Denver, Colorado. And it's been around for between 20, 25 years. And when he started it, he was working with a lot of athletes and doing some muscle testing, that kind of stuff. And he was finding different patterns within people, but he had had an injury himself. And one of the things that he tells the story is that he had tried PT, he had tried the massage, he tried all the things, and he started to look at it as, why can some people go to massage and feel great and others don't? Why do some people go to PT and get better and some don't? Why do people, that kind of pattern? And the one common between all modalities was the muscles. And so he started to look into the muscular system and putting muscle tests together and really studying it from that point. And then he worked with some neurologists, and they got that side of it, and they put it all together. And he really, to this day, is still evolving this whole thing. It's quite amazing when you talk with him.
Is this what your whole practice now is, MAT? Are there other, your involvement in fitness and MAT? Because it sounds like that's your background, right?
Yeah, primarily I would say it's MAT. That's the majority of it. I did develop an online class. It's called Back to Barefoot. And so I'm helping people retrain their feet, moving into a barefoot lifestyle so that their feet can be stronger, and in general, their health is just better. And I do work with some athletes, and I work with a few people as far as like their training and their weightlifting, that kind of thing. And I work with a lot of runners too.
So if you had one or two simple daily habits that our listeners could start with today, just at home, like one of our guests said, roll your ball when you're brushing your teeth to, help with foot mobility. Do you have any kind of like little hack like that our listeners could start with today to get them moving better?
Absolutely. I would say, like we talked about earlier, how your feet are such an important impact on everything. Go barefoot in your house as much as you can. And I understand that some people are starting from a point of pain. Their feet hurt. So if you can do 1 to 2 minutes, that's enough. Then, and build up and try to be barefoot as much as you can. And then if you are willing, grab a pair of barefoot shoes. There's lots of different kinds out there. There's some things that you want to look for when shopping, but if you find a pair of barefoot shoes, start just wearing those in your house a little bit, and then work your way. You wear them to the store once or twice, and build up into that. Because if you took nothing else away from strengthening your body and your feet, if you only, the one thing you changed was wearing a pair of barefoot shoes for 6 months, you can gain up to 60% of strength in your feet. And the number one predictor of falls is your toe strength. So if you have weak toes, your chances of falling go up. And so as you age, that's also a factor. And so if we can start in the age of 40-ish, like a lot of your listeners are, you're going to set yourself up 20 years down the road for a much better situation.
So what's the benefit of a barefoot shoe other than like maybe toe space? Like, would toe spacers do the same thing around the house as a barefoot shoe?
I would say they're going to do, it's going to be separate. Toe spacers are going to give you some space between those bones in your feet. And you have a lot of intrinsic muscles, which are muscles that are just on the bottom of your foot. You have 4 layers of that. And so when your toes are spread and you're walking around with those toe spacers on, that's actually allowing those intrinsic muscles to turn on a bit and strengthen up, which you won't get that in any kind of shoe, really. You'll get it a little bit more in a barefoot shoe, but toe spacers are going to help that much more. So wear those around your house when you are barefoot. But the point of a barefoot shoe is there's 4 main things you want to look for. You want to look for flexibility so that it moves. And when I say move, the whole shoe should move. It shouldn't just be folding it in half. The toes should roll and bend. The heel should be able to move. Because when your shoe can move, that means your foot can move. And that's ideally what you want. Another aspect would be the wide toe box, because that gives you plenty of room to splay those toes so you get full use and gives you better balance. You want it very little, you want a zero drop, so very flat is another thing. So like we talked about earlier, the more things you layer under your feet, the less information the less feedback you're going to be getting.
Amber, what kind of shoes do you wear? What are you wearing around?
Oh my gosh, I wear all sorts of barefoot shoes. I have a little bit of a problem because sometimes I'm like, I need regular shoes, but they're so comfortable. I have quite a few different pairs of fitness barefoot shoes. I have a couple of pairs of nice boots that I have. I just got a new pair of snow boots last year that are barefoot snow boots. You can find them everywhere. There's a lot of them out there.
Yeah, barefoot shoes might not be ideal in a winter environment unless they're designed specifically for the environment.
Right.
If you had a wish for our listeners today, Amber, what would it be?
I would wish that, one, they would just take a moment and listen for themselves. It's going to start with you. And what is it that you want 5, 10, 15 years from now? And you are worth taking the time to take care of yourself.
And my wish would be that we do pay attention to our body and all the things anything that might be any places we're compensating, and that we go ahead and if we don't find help in one place, we keep searching, because sometimes you're not going to find help in the first place. And maybe MAT is a place that you could find a practitioner that would be helpful.
And going last is always hard to find the wish because mine is always stolen. And honestly, it is for people to take a bit of time for themselves. Aches and pains don't go away, and what starts as a whisper is going to end up yelling at you sooner or later. So give yourself a moment to check in with your body and give it a bit of TLC.
Thanks for listening. You'll find me, Allie, on Instagram at Allie Kerr Fitness. And you'll find me, Shauna, on Instagram at Shauna Kaminsky. Feel free to pop us a DM with questions and or feedback. If you're enjoying the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, please subscribe and share it with other health-minded women. Ratings and reviews are also much appreciated and help us get our message out to a larger audience. Until next time, be healthy and be happy.